Procrastination. It's something almost everyone has wrestled with at some point. That gnawing feeling when you know you should be working, studying, or making progress, yet you find yourself scrolling through your phone, cleaning things that don't need cleaning, or staring blankly at the ceiling. But why do we do this? What's really going on inside our minds when we put things off? At its core, procrastination is a paradox. We delay tasks even though we know it might cause stress or make our lives harder in the long run. So why does this happen? The answer lies deep within the tangled web of our brain's emotional and cognitive systems. One key player in this story is the part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational thought, planning, and self-control. This is the part that tells us to get things done, to make a to-do list, and to stick to deadlines. But it often finds itself in a tug-of-war with the amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, which reacts strongly to fear, anxiety, and discomfort. When faced with a daunting task, especially one that feels difficult, boring, or overwhelming, the amygdala kicks into high gear. It sends out signals that trigger an emotional alarm. This feels scary or unpleasant. Suddenly, the rational voice of the prefrontal cortex is drowned out by this emotional distress. So instead of facing the task head-on, the brain seeks to soothe that discomfort by avoiding it altogether, often through distractions. This is why procrastination is not just about laziness or poor time management. It's fundamentally about emotion regulation. We procrastinate because our brain is trying to protect us from feeling bad in the moment. And the irony, the short-term relief from avoiding the task is usually followed by long-term stress and guilt, which only feeds the cycle of avoidance. There's also something called the temporal discounting effect. Our brains tend to value immediate rewards more highly than future rewards. So finishing a task tomorrow seems less important than watching a funny video or chatting with friends right now. The immediate pleasure wins out, even if it means sacrificing bigger benefits later. Another fascinating angle to procrastination is the role of perfectionism. For many, the fear of not doing something perfectly creates a mental block. The thought of starting a project and not being able to meet one's high standards can be so paralyzing that it's easier not to start at all. Here, procrastination acts as a shield, a way to avoid the risk of failure or criticism. But the story doesn't end there. Procrastination is also deeply tied to our identity and self-worth. When we procrastinate, we're often silently battling inner voices that say, "I'm not good enough," or "I can't do this." These beliefs can create a self-fulfilling prophecy where avoidance becomes a way to protect our fragile self-esteem from potential disappointment. Interestingly, research has shown that procrastinators tend to be more emotionally reactive and less effective at managing their emotions. They often prioritize feeling better in the moment over achieving long-term goals. But this doesn't mean they lack discipline or intelligence. On the contrary, many procrastinators are creative, thoughtful, and insightful. They just struggle with managing the emotional weight of their tasks. Understanding procrastination as an emotional struggle rather than a simple habit is empowering. It means that beating procrastination is not about forcing yourself to work harder or trying to rely on sheer willpower. It's about learning to work with your emotions, not against them. One powerful strategy comes from the idea of self-compassion. Instead of harshly judging yourself for procrastinating, acknowledging that it's a common human experience can reduce the shame and guilt that fuel avoidance. When you treat yourself kindly, your brain is less likely to respond with defensive procrastination. Another helpful approach is breaking tasks into smaller, manageable steps. This reduces the emotional overwhelm triggered by the task size or complexity. Each small victory creates positive feedback loops in the brain, releasing dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation, and making it easier to keep going. Creating an environment that minimizes distractions is also crucial. Since procrastination often involves seeking quick emotional relief, removing easy access to distractions like social media or unnecessary notifications can help reduce the temptation. Finally, it's worth exploring the underlying fears behind procrastination. Are you afraid of failure? Of not being good enough? Of success itself? Sometimes, simply identifying these fears can reduce their power. In the end, procrastination is not a personal flaw but a deeply human response to emotional discomfort. By understanding the psychological forces behind it, we can start to break the cycle with kindness, awareness, and practical steps, transforming procrastination from a source of shame into a doorway for growth. Remember, your brain is trying to protect you from feeling bad. Instead of fighting it, try listening. Meet your emotions with curiosity and compassion. And then, Take just one small step forward. Because sometimes, that's all it takes to start rewriting the story.